Hello everyone and welcome back to our Excel training video sessions. Today we will continue with formulas and functions and we will take a closer look at some advanced functions. Let's start. Choose function. So the two most commonly used formulas in Excel for scenario selection are choose and offset, and we will take a closer look for both of these options. So let's start with choose, because choose function is easy to understand but it's less flexible compared to offset. So let's give an example about choose. For choose function, we need an index number and we need some different outputs, some values for our options. So let's start typing equal and CHO, and if you press tab, it will automatically fill the rest of the formula. From here, we need to select an index number. So let's select our cell C2 as our cell index number, comma, and then we will define some different values depending on our index number, which is for value 1, we'll define cell D4 red, comma, for value 2, let's define cell D5, comma, and for our third value, we will define green, which is on cell D6. And if you press enter, what choose formula does is it first looks for the index number and returns the value depending on the index number. So since we have 1 as our index number, it will return the first value that we input in the choose function, which is cell D4. So let's just try to change the number for index number and see what will happen. So let's put 2 in cell C2, and as you can see here, what choose function does is it looks for the index number, now it's 2, and it will return the second value we inputted, which is cell D5. Therefore, if we put number 3, it will return us our third value that we inputted. Offset function. So for the offset function, we need a reference cell, we need how many rows do we need to move down, and we need to also define how many columns that we want to move right. So let's give an example of offset. Here we have the same table and we will define the offset function. So let's press equal OF, and if you press tab, it will fill automatically. From here, we need to select a reference cell, and let's select our reference cell as cell D2. For this, you can just move up and down back again to select cell D2. Put comma, and from here, we need to define how many rows do we want to move down. So let's select our cell C2 for this option. Press comma, and since we only have one column, we don't need to define how many columns do we want to move right. So we'll just put 0 in here, and let's press enter. So what offset function does compared to choose function is it looks for our reference cell, it starts from our reference cell, and then it says, hey, how many rows do I need to move down? And it looks for our cell C2 and it says you need to move only one cell down. And then it goes to the third argument of our offset function and says how many columns do I need to move right? And since we defined 0 for columns, it doesn't move anywhere in terms of columns. So therefore, the offset says that I'll start from cell D2 and I'll move only one cell down, which gives us the answer red. So if we change the cell C2, if we put 2, the offset function will say, okay, I'll start from cell D2 and I need to move down 2 cells. And if we put 3, it will give us the third row value in this table. Lookup function, and also HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP. So lookup function returns a value from a range, any row or column, from an array. What we need to define in here is we need to define a lookup value and a lookup vector, and also we can define a result vector as well. So let's give an example for it. Here we have a small table in D1 to E4 about the cities and the populations of it, and what we're trying to find out here is in cell B5 we want to find out what's the population of New York City based on our table. So let's start writing our formula by pressing equal and L-O-O, and if you press tab, it will fill up. From here, we need to first define our lookup value. What we're going to look up is the city New York. So we need to select our cell B4, which we can do it by pressing up arrow, comma. Then we need to define our lookup vector. Our lookup vector is where are we going to look for the city New York. It's in the column D. So let's go to the cell D4. And with using shift and arrow keys, let's highlight the range for all the cities. Press comma, and then Since we want our population to be as a return from our formula, we need to select our result vector as well. And in here, we can see that the result vector is on the column E. So let's go to E4, and then using shift and arrow keys, let's highlight this result vector as well. So if you press enter, it will automatically return the population for New York City. So let's change the New York with some city else like Tokyo. If you put Tokyo and press enter, it will return the population for Tokyo. So this is how lookup works, and VLOOKUP has the same logic if you want to use it on the vertical tables, and we use HLOOKUP for horizontal tables. Match formula. So match sorts a value in an array and returns the relative position of it. So for match formula, we need to put a lookup value, a lookup array, and the match type. So let's give an example. Here, we want to find out the rank of New York City based on its relative location in the table. So let's start typing our formula, equal m, and press tab. From here, first we need to define our lookup value. So what are we going to look is the city New York. So let's select cell B4 as our lookup value. Put comma. From here, we need to define our lookup value. So where are we going to look our New York? Which array are we going to look for this city is written on column E. So let's go to cell E4, and by using shift and arrow keys, let's highlight the whole range. Put comma. Since we're looking for an exact match, we need to put 0 in here. So after we put 0, let's press enter, and it will return the relative position of New York from the table. So the formula actually returns the relative position, so it doesn't return the value in the cell D2. Therefore, since we already organized our table in terms of from the highest population to the lowest one, it will return the rank based on the position of New York City in the city column. So if we put another city name here instead of New York, let's put London and press enter. It will return the relative position of London, which is in the third row in our lookup array, so that's why it returns rank 3. Index function. So index function returns a value based on the intersection of a row and column in a table. So let's give an example. We know that City of London is ranked in the third place by using our match function. Now we want to find out its population by using our formula. Let's put equal IN and press tab to fill the rest of the formula. From here, first we need to define our array. The array is where are we going to look at the population of London, which is on the F column. So let's press F5 to open go to menu, and from here type F2, and if you press enter, we will move to the F2 cell. So from here, if we use Control Shift and down arrow, we will highlight the array for our population. We put comma, and then we want to define our row numbers. So from this array, which row are we going to look at for the population of City London? From the previous example, we find out that the London is ranked as third in this table, so we can use our match function as our row number argument. So let's select cell B5 as our row number, and since we only have one column in this array, we don't necessarily need to define a column number, but if you're working on a table which has multiple columns and rows, then you need to define a column number as well. So after we said that, let's press enter to see what happened. So what index formula does is it goes and looks for the array from cell F2 to F4, and it returns the value in the third row. What we showed this match and index formula together in the spreadsheet is you can actually use match function inside index and just get the result for population of random in only one single cell. Indirect function. What indirect function does is it's a dynamic reference to other worksheets, and it will return a result based on the name of the spreadsheet and the location of the cell. So let's give an example. For this cell, for this spreadsheet, we have the name John as our spreadsheet, and we have the sales number for John in cell B2 as $100. In our third sheet named as Tom, we have the sales in the same specific cell, cell B2, as $300. So if we move to our first sheet, and if we use our indirect function to return values relatively to their sheet names, we need to use the indirect function. So let's start. Equal sign, INDI, and press tab to fill out the rest of the formula. And from here, we need to select our cell B1 as our text reference. So what it does is, actually it's looking for John in the sheet names and try to find out a sheet named John. And from here, we need to define which cell are we gonna gather from those sheets. So which cell are we looking for? This is cell B2, so we need to type B2 as our reference. And if you press enter, it will return exactly the cell number for John in the sheet name, under the sheet name John. So let's put Tom's name in B1 and see what happens. If you put Tom and press enter, it will automatically return the value in the Tom sheet in cell B2. Perfect. We just finished our video about advanced formulas and functions in Excel. This is a quick list of what we used in this video. From here, we highly recommend you to go to our website hotkeyexcel.com, download our game, and start practicing by using our game. By playing Hotkey Excellence, you will build up your muscle memory and increase your speed and efficiency in Excel. Thank you everyone, and see you on the next video.